Hello there everyone, it's Carol here from the Crafty Emporium and I'm really excited today. Doesn't take much to get me really excited about paper. They've brought out a new kit which I'm going to do a little mini series on. It's called Mad About Sewing Project Pack. It's huge, there's loads. Now before you all turn off because you think I'm not into sewing, there's an awful lot in here that you can use that is not sewing related at all, but I'm going to show you some of the pages. So it's the Vectoria Designs Mad About Sewing Project Pack. I will put the link in the description box down below if you want to go and have a look at yourself for yourself. But there's loads. I love the colours of it. Just love the colours of it. And as a few of you may know, I do actually do, or I have done in the past, I'm an embroidery designer as well, so it appealed to me from that aspect. It appealed to me because I just love the colours within it. So I'm going to show you some of the papers because otherwise I'll just sit here and wax lyrical all day. So as you can see from some of the images, they are very stitching orientated. Now this one here is pen nibs. So, you know, that's why I say don't just think of it as a sewing kit, because there's lots in here that you could use that is not related to sewing at all. So you could do, you know, a journal without. So that's one of the ephemera parts. This is another one. So this is sort of pockets and little paper strips that you can cut out. But again, look, see, that one's not sewing related at all. It's got a clock in and a feather in it. This one has got a sewing machine on it. This one's got a butterfly on it. So there's lots that you can use in here. And then these are some of the journal pages. Now there's all sorts of different sizes. I don't know how many papers there are in the kit, but there's a lot. There is a lot. But there's loads to choose from. So again, look, another one here, look, with the pen nibs and some ledger paper in the background. This one is like an old writing paper and it's got some print at the top there. This one is sewing orientated, so it has got the mannequin on and a pair of scissors, and this comes in two colours. So you've got a red version and a creamy beigey version as well. There is graph paper with coffee staining on it, some of the paper that the Americans use, the American children use for practicing writing. I'm a Damaski swirly girl. I do like those kinds of images, and this is another reason why it appealed to me. So yeah, as you can see, look, lots and lots. Oh, two of those of different papers. This is a mere fraction, I have to say, of what I've printed out. So I've reduced some there so that they're ready to make little notebooks with. I reduced that one to make into little index cards. So yeah, got those. And then there's this one. And this one. Now, when I saw the kit, I actually had 2 days previous to getting the kit, I'd actually started designing another little journal ready for another little mini series. And so when I looked at these papers, I thought, do you know what? This is going to be ideal for that project that I want to do. Now, I'm just going to show you my inspiration. So when I did my country diary journal a while ago now, I got this book called A Country Woman's Journal, and I loved the fact that it lifted up this way instead of the usual lifting open that way. And I loved the fact that they'd written on the pages lengthwise. Loved it. So, inspiration number one. Inspiration number two was I got this from a local charity shop, and it's what we would class as a traditional photo album, so that it's got the tracing, not tracing paper, like vellum type tracing paper kind of thing, the protective covering, and then you would put your photograph on there. But what inspired me about this was how it was actually put together with these strips down here. And so that was my inspiration, and I'll show you a quick. This is what I started 2 days previous, because I was going to use up all of my Jane Austen bits and pieces, so that it lifts up this way, so that you've got then this full page to be writing on. And then when this kit came out, I was like, woohoo! So I'm going to show you how I'm going to make the journal using these papers in the format that I've just shown you. So I hope you'll join me on the journey. It'll be maybe 2 or 3 videos long. Yeah, so this will be the first one. Second one is about the pages and starting to put them together, and then the third one will be about slightly more, you know, decorating it further. It's called Mad About Sewing Project Pack by Vectoria Designs. I'll see you in a little while and we'll make a start. So now you've seen the style of journal that I'm going to be making using this new digital kit, and I'm going to use these Amazon envelopes as my covers. All right, now the size of this envelope is just over 9 inches by nearly 7. Okay, so that's the size that I'm going to use. Obviously, you can use whatever you want. It's a good way of me using these up. Now, I'm going to have to take them apart to be able to then put them back together again to make the journal cover. I've also chosen the papers that I'm going to use on my front cover. And I'm going to use this red, really beautiful deep red linen effect paper, and I'm going to use this paper as well on the front cover. And I've also chosen some fabric to go with it, because I'm going to put some fabric on there too. Now, I've printed these onto 160 GSM cardstock, which I got from Hobbycraft. So that's what I'm going to use for my front cover. Now, what size do I actually want to cut this to? Yours may vary to mine, but I don't want any wastage, so I'm not actually going to cut papers down to specific sizes. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use a sheet of A4 tea-dyed paper, which I'll show you in a second. Now, A4 for us here in the UK is 11 3/4 inches by 8 1/4 inches, and that's very much kind of a rounded up kind of figure, rounded down. It's easier to measure it in millimetres, so a sheet of A4 is 297 millimetres by 210 millimetres. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fold my paper in half and trim it down, but I'll come on to that a little bit later on. So my paper size, my page size, is going to be classed as A5, and A5 is 5 3/4 inches by 8 1/4 inches, which is 148 millimetre by 210 millimetre. I'm just going to turn my little lamp on because I'm noticing I'm getting a bit of shadowing. So that's the size that my pages are going to be. So I will need to cut these down to size to fit around the pages that I'm going to be using. Now, as I say, I'm going to be using my A4 papers, and I'm going to use my tea-dyed papers. And I know that some of you will ask what tea I've used, and it's this one. It's Tetley Red Bush. What I found when I use this is it comes out a slightly more yellowy, with a tinge of orange to it, kind of colour. And I just felt that with the papers that I'm going to be using, it just blends a lot nicer with the papers than coffee dyed papers. Coffee dyed tends to be a much more brown colour. This is a much more sort of yellowy, orangey, goldy colour. So those are the papers that I'm going to be using. And as I say, I knew that there'd be someone out there going, oh yeah, but what tea did you use, Carol? Yeah, well, it's that one. So those are the papers, but I'm going to come on to those a little bit later on. I want to start with the cover first, and I'm going to do these. Now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take them apart. So I've peeled off all the stickers, and I want to pull these flaps back and totally unravel it. So I'll see you back here in a second when I've done that. I've cut off all the flappy bits, and I'm also going to cut them in half. So I'm just going to do this with scissors, because just simply because it's easier. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue these two sides together, because where I've peeled stuff off, as you can see, look, it's quite rough around the edges, and those sort of lumps and bumps can sometimes show up through your paper. So if I put those two rough edges together, then I've got the smoother edge on the outside to work with. Now I'm going to use my collal glue to put them together, and you do need to be careful, because sometimes, depending on what materials we use to make these envelopes, sometimes this card can actually, my glue don't want to come out, come on, this glue can actually absorb this paper, if I could speak, actually absorbs the glue sometimes. So you need to make sure you've got plenty on. You don't want to saturate it, but you do need to make sure that you do have plenty on. And then, as I say, I'm just going to stick them back to back. Now at this moment in time, it doesn't matter that they all meet up at the edges and the corners, because I'm going to cut them down to size. So here's the one that I did earlier. So I've already said that I'm cutting my papers to A5 size, and I want the cover to be fractionally bigger than the papers I'm going to be using. So if I just use, don't know where my pencil's gone, so I'm going to have to use a pen. So I'm going to sort of sit it in the middle and near to the top. I'm going to trim off that top edge anyway to just neaten it up. But I'm just going to draw around so that you can see it a lot easier, what it is that I'm going to do. And I'm covering it in paper anyway, so you're not going to see this pen mark. So that is roughly my page size, and I want my cover to be that little bit bigger. Now you may find that your paper trimmer might not cut through all of this card, and if you've got a big Bertha, we'll just give it a go. If you've got a big Bertha, which I have, I've used my big Bertha before, then you might be better off using that or a craft knife. Just didn't catch that little bit there. Okay, now I want it about just slightly more than 1/8 of an inch bigger, because I want a little bit of a lip on each of the long sides. This will dull your blade something wonderful as well. It's not gone quite through. See, look, so I'm just going to run my scissors down there. Oh, there we go. It fell off. The bottom I'm going to do about 1/4 of an inch longer. So you can write down all these mathematics and add them up if you want to use actual measurements. So I'm doing an 1/8 of an inch on each of the sides, long sides, and 1/4 of an inch at the bottom. Now I've cut this one to the size that I want, I'm going to draw around this on my other piece of card, and then I know what size I've got to cut it to. So now I need to work out what size I need to cut my papers to be able to cover the front cover. So I've just cut off this strip off this one end, because I know that I want this one at the top, and the effect that I want to create is I want to do about 2/3 in this paper and the bottom third in the red, and then have my strip of fabric going across. So if I place this on the back and leave enough of a border here that I can fold it over, because I'll need to glue it onto the back. So if I do that, of course, this is the lazy way of doing it. I could measure it, of course. No, 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 no. We won't do that, Carol. We'll go for lazy. Better put my scissors there. And I'm going to cut it. See, look, extra lazy. I'm just going to trim off that excess. And I'm going to fold that edge over. Okay, so it will look like that. Now I need to trim off some of this excess here, and I'm going to, I think, just cut it along this line, just purely because it's there, and it's easy to follow. So I'm just trimming off the excess there. So at the moment I just want to get a feel of what it's going to look like. And then with this piece again, I'm just going to trim off that little strip at the end. And in fact I can use this piece here because I know I want it that wide. I want to trim off that little bit there. And that will sit there, because that will overlap slightly. In fact, if I glue that overlap down, so I'm just going to run a line of glue across there, and then that will hold that paper in place while I work out how long it needs to be. And again, this doesn't have to be particularly neat because I'm putting a strip of fabric across. There we go. So now I can see that I need to chop off the excess here. And then that will fold over that way. And then that will fold over that way. In these squares here, I don't know whether you'll be able to see, but where I've folded there's a little square there. I'm going to taper this edge into the corner of that square, and then the same on this side. So there's a little bit of a space between where that fold is and where I've snipped. And I'm not going to glue it in place just yet because I want to do this piece of fabric across the middle. So it's too wide as it is, so I want it about inch and a quarter. So I'm going to snip it and then I'm going to rip it, and the grain of the fabric, yeah, it did this last time. I was practicing earlier and tripped it at an angle. Not that I'm worried about that. And then that will sit across that middle bit there. And I'm just going to glue it on with my Fabri-Tac because I want to put a line of sewing on it as well. So I'm just going to glue that in place and trim off that excess. And I'm going to run a zigzag line of stitching across that top edge there. Right, I'm going to do the same for the back cover, do the stitching, and then I'll come back and show you the finished part. I've done my stitching on both the front and the back cover. Made myself a brew, a lovely cup of tea. And I'm now going to show you how I'm going to attach these together. So I only very roughly folded these edges over, and I just want to redefine them a little bit more. So I'm just going to burnish them with my bone folder. Now I'm not doing a hard crease, I'm only doing a sort of soft crease for now, but I just want it slightly more defined than it was, because I've got to allow for the thickness of the card as I'm folding it over. So there we go, they're slightly more defined now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my Tombow glue over the back of this card, if it'll come out. Are you coming? Are you playing? There we go. And I don't have to do a precise covering of glue, but I want to make sure that the papers are held in contact and not flapping about, and then that will sit in there. Alright, so Tombow glue across that top edge. And I'm going to pull on it to make sure that I've got it completely wrapped around. And this is why I didn't want a hard crease. And then lift that up and over. Okay, now the other thing that I like to do as well is, because I've got all this bulk here, if you do it with your eyes open, you don't notice it so much, but if you close your eyes and run your hand down there, you can feel the excess bump where we've got the 2 layers of paper and the fabric as well. What I actually like to do, and it doesn't make an awful lot of difference, and you don't have to do this, but it does make a touch of a difference, is I've got a really wide micro pour, and I like to just put it over the edge of fabric like that, because when I run my hand down now, it's a much smoother bump than before. I've lost my end. There it is. Come on. And as I say, it doesn't make a massive difference, but it just does make a touch of a difference. It doesn't eliminate the bump, but it smooths the bump out. Okay, so that's my front, and that's the back. All right, next step is to actually cut 2 pieces of paper, and I've chosen this one with the mannequin and the scissors on to be just fractionally like a 1/16 of an inch on each of the 4 sides, smaller than the actual cover itself. Again, if I just show you up close so you can see how much of a border there is going to go around it. So I've cut 2 pieces already, and I've inked them up. Now if we imagine that this is our cover, so one's going to sit on top of the other, this front one is going to flip up. So it means that to have this, because it's directional the right way up, it's going to go on that way. But when I put it down, it's the pattern itself, look, is upside down. But when I lift the cover up, the pattern's the right way up. Now at this moment in time, we're not sticking it in place, so please don't glue it in position, but just paper clip it to remind you to have it the wrong way up. All right, paper clip that one in place. The next thing that I've done is I've just got some craft card that I got from Hobbycraft, and I've cut this to about 3 inches wide, and I've cut it so again it is just fractionally shorter, or narrower I should say, than the width of the cover. all will come together. You'll get the reason why in a bit. But this is, I'm just going to put a line of glue along that edge. This is part of the hinge stroke spine. So I'm just going to glue that on there so that it's overlapping by about 1/4 of an inch. And again, I might just put some micropore on that. Again, to just soften that edge up a little, because it forms a ridge. Right, and then this one is going to go the correct way up, because this is going to be the back cover, so that wants to be the right way up. So I'm going to put glue on the back of there, and you can actually attach the back one, but don't do the front one, because we need to attach the other side of the hinge in place. And we can't do that until we've got our pages in, so we know how deep our spine area is going to be. So carefully lift that up. And then check on your borders to make sure that they're nice and even, and then that will sit on top of that, what's going to be the hinge stroke spine, to join the front and the back cover together. Okay, I'm happy with that. So that is now the back cover, and as I say, this is going to form part of the hinge which will be attached to the front cover, but we're not going to attach it just yet. So that is why we're not sticking that lining paper onto the front cover. So we've finished with our covers for now, so I'm going to put those to one side and talk to you about the pages themselves. I don't want to waste any time with cutting down my A4 papers to specific sizes to fit in the cover. I just want to crack on and get my pages done. So all I've done is I've got 10 sheets of A4 paper. I've folded them in half, and then where the fold is, and I did this with my paper trimmer, not my scissors, but it's just it's easier for me to do this, is I just trimmed off a mere smidge of the fold, so that I've now got 2 sheets of A5 paper. I then put these onto my score-pal. I nearly forgot the word again. And I turned it on its side, and I did 3/8 of an inch score on this right hand side here, so that I could fold it over to give me a little bit of a hinge. Right, so that's all I did. Right, so those are my pages. So with 10 sheets I get 20 pages, but I've got 40 pages then to write on, because obviously I've got the front and I've got the back. All right, when we have a look at one of the folded pieces and the cover, that folded piece is going to act as the hinge and is going to sit and be glued to the cover like so. Right, so just the hinge is going to be glued in place. I'll come to that later on, but the reason why I'm pointing this out now is you'll notice there's a big gap at the bottom. Now I'm okay with that for the simple fact that it means that I can now add some decorative edges on the bottom of this paper. So I could add lace, I could add my punch borders, I could add some folded paper strips. It allows me now the space to be able to do that to the bottom edges of this paper. So I don't want you to panic thinking, oh, it's massively short. It's not. So that's the tea dyed papers. So they're all now ready to go. And then the other thing is I went through the digital kit and I went and chose some of the papers that I want to use. Now I can keep adding to my pages as I'm going along. So that's the next step, is to get to that point, and then I'll come back in the next video and we'll start to decorate up the pages and add all these beautiful papers to our journal. See you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.